Requesting permission for launch. Yeah. Pro show. Yes, sir. Explaining entertainment, keeping them ahead of the culture. That's right. Go for launch in 3, 2, 1. Here you go, sir. Start the countdown.
He's been cited by IGN, The Quartering, Timcast, The Daily Wire, Bounding into Comics, and even Dr. Jordan B. Peterson.
As the insider WDW Pro recently speculated on.
Time and time again, he's broken big entertainment news live on the air.
I've been following WDW Pro and his track record for years. If you want to find out what's on the horizon for theme parks, Pro is where you go.
He's like the honey badger. He just keeps scooping and scooping and scooping. He's like the honey badger. He just keeps scooping and scooping and scooping. All right. All right. All right. He's like the honey badger. He just keeps scooping and scooping and scooping. All right. All right. He's like the honey badger. All right. All right.
Man, that Pro guy, he got more answers than Corn Pop. I tune in every day right here from the Oval Office. Sniff air and find out what Pro has to say every day.
Quick, Cheney, we gotta put away the Legos and get in the big boy chair. It's time to listen in to the Pro Show, my favorite show every single day.
I did not have relations with anybody during the Pro Show.
It's Pro. He's gonna be huge.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejados de las puertas. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, in just 2 minutes, the lighting at the Magic Kingdom will dim for the performance of the Pro Show. We hope you enjoy and have a magical, truthful time. For the safety of others, please, no flash photography. And welcome to Provision 3D.
All right, everyone, put on your comfy glasses. I'm going.
Keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun. From the redwoods of California to the hills of Tennessee to the Rockies in the Sunshine State and Maine with that bright and shining sea. From coast to coast in North America, it's time for your host with the most, bringing you all the entertainment news that should be fun. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the WDW Pro Show! Hello, folks, and welcome to the most fun you can have at 6 p.m. on a Thursday evening. And let me tell you, it's way more fun than what I just got out of, and that is the Marvels. As you all know, we have a steady commitment here, and that is that we do not take handouts. We do not take any kind of quid pro quos. And that means we wait until the show begins for all of you for us to go see said show. And in this case, I'm not sure that there was a show when it came to the Marvels. We're going to get into the review. Jonas J. Campbell, investigative reporter for that Park Place, is also on his way back from the theater. He had a later showing. He has gone and seen the Marvels as well. It is quite the cacophony of a mess, and we'll talk about if this is actually perhaps even the end of the MCU, and if this is a bellwether for Disney that perhaps Wall Street should be paying closer attention to. We've got a lot more going on, too, today, folks, and we have also a poll going on right now. Yes, Joe Rogan put out information, and he and Elon Musk shared a double anchovy, double pineapple pizza the other day on his podcast, and that has created a trend across the country. Folks trying that very peculiar pizza, and I have tried it as well. You can take a look at a picture of said pizza on the community tab of the WDW Pro channel. Got a picture there to prove that it was indeed ordered and has been had, and I'll give my review of that pizza and whether or not double anchovy, double pineapple pizza is better or worse than the Marvels. Get ready for that. As we wait on Jonas J. Campbell, though, we want to bring in another producer extraordinaire. You know him, you love him. He is the secret sauce, the rabbit chicken special behind all of these fantastic YouTube channels that you adore. Please welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Mexican Iron Man. Sir, welcome.
Oh, I thought I was just here for the diversity and inclusion points.
Oh, now wait a minute, Mike. You're a superhero. You're not just representation.
Oh, thanks. Well, Jonas,
you might be in Avengers 6.
Jonas hit me up at the last minute, said he was running late, so he says, "Mike, go start the show." I'm like, Mexican Iron Man, on the way.
You know what's funny, Mike? Jonas texted me just a few moments ago, and he said that he would be here as soon as he could be. The credits are taking forever. And I didn't have the heart, Mike, to tell him that there's no end credit scene. I didn't have the heart to tell him. So, folks, Jonas is still sitting there watching those credits, and he's going to get nothing. Of course, the only credit scene there is a midpoint, but he does have a fantastic co-host over there with him on That Park Place, the YouTube channel. We want to welcome in the one and only, the legendary Vash Sky as well. Vash, welcome aboard, sir.
Oh, you are far too kind, sir. That intro, I don't deserve it.
Well, you know, Vash, you are quickly becoming a favorite, of course, not only on That Park Place, but here on this channel. Whenever you appear, you are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to all things Disneyland and West Coast parks, and we're happy to have you as we discuss the Disney stock today and the fact that it's gone up. We've heard a lot of feedback, people saying, "Hey, Pro, why did you not know the stock would go up?" People saying, "You guys always hate on Disney and it has a good day and you don't give them credit." And, well, we're gonna dive into that, folks. We had to get some time, see what the stock did over 24 hours, and we're gonna let you know our thoughts. Someone who is never short on thoughts whatsoever, though, folks. Another panelist extraordinaire. Please welcome aboard someone who I suspect is going back to work after today. The Script Doctor is in the house.
Good evening.
Happy to have you, Script. We're all doing, I hope, well. And we also want to send out, of course, he's not watching right now, but there is one of our friends, an individual out there who has been on the channel before, who is tying the knot right now, who is preparing for a life of bliss and matrimony. And so to everybody over there connected with the Salty Nerd podcast, everybody who is also partaking in that event, we want to send a big congratulations over there. We're so excited for that.
Fantastic.
Well, guys, I guess the place will start as Jonas sits and watches the credits crawl. I guess we'll start off with the Marvels. Script, have you seen the Marvels yet?
I have. I was provided a screener from a friend who worked on the movie.
And do you feel that biases you at all, or can you be an unbiased source of review for this evening?
Oh yeah, we watched it together. I was listen. Any type of time I'm going into a movie, I'm really hoping that they wow me, and
Yes.
more often than not, they don't.
Well,
And
I think
that's
that
the
I
standard
think
we're
that
looking for.
denotes where this is going to go, but I don't want to put you in a peculiar position where you're having to hate on something that someone who cares about you and you care about them has been a part of it, and you put it in an awkward spot. So,
Oh, I
at any
care
point,
I do, so I'm good either way.
okay, well, just know, you don't have to slam it if it would be sacrimonious to do so, or if it would be terrible.
Well,
But
I won't
let's
slam it unless it deserves slamming, and that's the other part too. And there are lots of things to discuss when it comes to the Marvels.
let's dive straight in. But before we do, Mexican Iron Man, Mike, would you mind to pull up any super chats that we need to cover before we hit
I would absolutely love
Marvels?
to. Let's start off with Buttcrack Media, who gifted 5 WDW Pro memberships.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Buttcrack Media. It just goes deeper and deeper, the goodness that you are.
So does the crack. And then York also gifted 5 WDW Pro memberships.
Zug zug.
Scott Westbrook, just before the show began, sent us a $10 super sticker.
That is extraordinarily kind. Thank you, Scott.
And from the Theater of Pain, Jonas J. Campbell sends in a member chat saying this movie was undercooked.
Uh-oh. Unlike a certain pineapple and anchovy pizza, I suspect.
And we've got a $20 super chat from Practicality Makes Perfect. For $20, says, my wife said she would watch the kids tonight if I wanted to go see the Marvels with her coworkers. I politely declined and said an enigma sounds more refreshing than sitting through 90 minutes of that.
Well, practicality makes perfect. Here's what your wife and coworkers are experiencing right now.
Can I get Musha?
Oh, dame yo.
Hey! Good Lord! Name of all that's sacred?
Wow.
That's the feeling they are probably having right now. And PMP, we are so happy that you're here and watching, and we will give you the full rundown and every single angle that's appropriate for the Marvels.
Tommy Table sends in Canadian $6.99, says, due to a raging chat debate, can you speak to why the $300 million production budget, as reported of Indy 5, may not be accurate and made no profits?
Well, let me hand it to Script first. And Script, if you'd like to take this one, you're welcome to. I don't mind to answer it either. But Script, any thoughts on a $300 million production budget and that perhaps being less than the overall cost, the overall expenditure that Disney made for Indy?
Well, that starts with the fact that reported budgets are what they intend to spend. It's not necessarily what they do spend. And one of the reasons why they don't always report what they do spend is because a lot of movies, whether they're independent or big studios, they do what's called pre-sales to territories. This is where they sell it to other markets for its theatrical release, and that money goes against what they intend to spend when it comes to the budget. So if you are reporting 300 million and you've done pre-sales of say 100 million, but you end up spending say 500 or 550 million, which you can kind of equate when it comes to loans and lines of credit that they draw from, depending on region, the type of currency that they're using and how much it's working against what their principal currency is, depending on where they set up their bank accounts and so forth. In addition to what type of tax credits they're getting on, depending on what location they're filming. So there's a multitude of factors that go involved, and I'm only still scraping the surface for you guys out there. I would get into the nitty gritty, but I don't think we have 3 hours to spend on that. But just with that general, those general areas that I just mentioned, it's very, very difficult. With the more that you spend, the more that you make. So what Hollywood accounting figured out around 15 years ago is that if you invest $100 million into a film, you have a chance of actually making your money back with profit. However, for some strange reason, those same accountants said, well, if you double or triple that, you should get double or triple profits. But that's not actually the case, because you're not analyzing the market the market that you're drawing from. The ticket price relatively stays the same. The population relatively stays the same, with minor growth from decade to decade. So if you triple something within a certain single generation, expecting that you'll have more people come to see it, you're actually fooling yourself, because those people don't exist yet. And you're not going to have those showings. And also when you shrink the release schedule. So if you have a movie in theaters for only 6 weeks, where traditionally for a very long time, it used to be anywhere from 6 months to 18 months in a theater, you're making less money. And so that's why if you see a movie that has an exceedingly high budget, and I'm talking $150 million plus, it's going to be harder and harder for it to make its money back, given how much they've spent, and also how available they can make that film to the audience for.
And in terms of Indiana Jones with specificity, folks out there in the chat, I haven't had a chance to see exactly what the kerfuffle was about, but I believe it was Valiant Renegade who pulled tax documents, and with the help of a guest who'll be coming on in just a moment, but pulled tax documents from
about the tax documents for Indiana Jones.
You're not allowed yet. Get out of here, Jonas. We'll bring him back in just a moment, folks. But $332 million was what they discovered within a 1-year frame. There's still some outline that probably will come into effect with the reshoots for the ending that we think happened. And then, of course, that's not even including the budget.
Promotional.
Exactly. Promotional and all of that, which we suspect was quite large. Vash, they did, of course, the celebration over at the Cannes Film Festival. That cost a pretty penny.
Yeah, and so we're talking like a worldwide gross of, what was it, 384? I mean, that's and we have to assume that the studio takes home anywhere between 40, 50, 60%, depending on territory and region and all kinds of figures. It didn't make money, folks.
The break-even point, we believe, was at the lowest. The break-even point was $900 million. It clearly fell far short of that. Right. Now, he has diminished the suspense behind this, but still, we have a ring at the door. So, folks, you know the thing we do here. Let's go answer it.
Who could that be? Let's go see, boys and girls.
I'm shocked, I tell you. It's Jonas J. Campbell, investigative reporter for ThatParkPlace.com, and a man who has just come out of the theaters having seen The Marvels. Jonas, welcome. Script has also seen The Marvels, and he watched it with someone who had a role in bringing this movie to fruition. So we'll get into the review in just a moment. But, Mike, do we have any more super chats we need to hit?
JT sent us a super sticker that let us know that this channel is #1 for $5. Thanks, JT.
Hey. Thank you so much. You're #1, JT.
Our good friend Flora from Under a Rock sending Canadian $2 said, "Could Pro use some My Doll? Hint, hint, nudge, nudge."
Some My Doll, you say? I don't think we've ever done any kind of promotion. They're not a sponsor. Wait a minute. What is happening?
At that time of month, the cramps.
We will not play the My Doll commercial right now. Floral, how did you get control of it? Must be Wilton. Wilton the troll back there.
And Slade Wilson, the band man, for $5 says, "The Marvels, the most hilarious movie you will ever see."
I'm glad that Slade is no longer banned, although it never happened here. It happened with those cute little frugal Furbies over there.
And the last one on this round is Charger the Comic #2 asks, "We going to talk backlash to Zelda being live action?"
We sure will, and only because you asked for it. We'll come back to that in a little bit. Folks, don't let us forget about it, okay? Bring it back to our attention if we don't get to it in a moment. But I don't want to leave the audience hanging any longer. I do want to hit the Marvels review, and we'll come back to that Zelda issue in just a bit. Jonas, you've just come out of the theater. You have fresh perspective. Share with us your thoughts on what you just saw regarding the Marvels.
I would say that is a movie that was probably due for another round of reshoots and editing that they never got around to doing. It's really disjointed. There are tonal changes from cut to cut between characters, costume changes in weird spots, and this is an unfinished movie that was released to the public, is my opinion.
It feels to me like if you guys have ever been to class one day in college or high school when it's supposed to be group presentation day. This feels to me like there was a group out there that was given an assignment, but somehow every person in the group read it differently, and they all thought they had a different presentation to give. And then 5 minutes before they had to go on in front of the classroom, they all realized, oh my gosh, and they cobbled together what they had and tried to make it be worthwhile. I think that's how we wound up with a movie that has, out of its 100-minute runtime, I mean, I don't think I'm over exaggerating. You guys correct me if I'm wrong. 40 to 50 minutes of exposition, verbal exposition. It's
you know
something.
What's funny is the first half, I felt like there was almost no verbal exposition. There was a lot of things going on that I really would have liked some quantification of what everything is. Motivations of characters needed to be established a lot earlier on.
Well, Jonas, you're exactly right. You had to have had a PhD in all of the shows that Marvel has ever done to understand this. If you had not seen Miss Marvel, there is no hope for you in understanding this. If you had not seen Secret Invasion, good luck. Although, let me say this, the Mr. Fury that is in this film is completely different than that one. So, make of that what you will. If you've not seen the original Captain Marvel, then you're going to be utterly lost in this film. And so all of that, I think, I often consider that if a movie requires you to have that sort of knowledge going in, that it's probably not a successful script.
I don't know that is true, though, because I've seen Captain Marvel several times, one time to try to break it down. And the issue that I had with that film is that they show a flashback at least 7 times in that film, and you're supposed to have some mystery about what it is, even though the advertisements for the film kind of spoiled what was going on. And they managed to get that same flashback into this film as well. I noticed that. So thank you for that, Marvel, for making me relive that moment again. I don't think that the first Captain Marvel helps this film much at all, because everyone is so different. Captain Marvel is, I'll say this, Captain Marvel is more charming in this film than she was in Captain Marvel.
Well, let's go to Script then. Script, tell me what were the positives, what were the negatives for you?
Well, the positives is that the villain had a very simple, easy to understand goal. And I would say the cast, they had their energy came through, so they didn't feel annoying or offensive, but they were just kind of thin and empty. To put it lightly, like, yes, Carol Danvers is far better to watch in this version. She's not snarky, she's not obnoxious, but she's devoid of real conflict. And so are the other characters. Like this is a Valley Girl film. I'll put it to you that way. It's vapid and empty and thin and superficial, but I don't know if I could really say it's the worst of the Marvel films, because
I think Quantumania is worse.
Quantumania still has a charm to it, but it's sloppier. And this movie definitely feels like it's only a third of the story of what you're actually expecting, which is also terrible given the fact that's a 90-minute runtime. So I wouldn't want a 3+ hour movie in order for it to be a fully developed film. It just it's basic. But yeah, Brie Larson is nowhere near annoying or off-putting as she was portrayed in the Captain Marvel.
She doesn't hurt random strangers in this one like she did in the first one either.
Well, that was a deleted scene.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Let's not lie. I mean, they cut that scene out because the studio realized that does not look well on the character.
Well, I didn't mean to lie. Sorry, I misremembered it. Although she somehow does
shared.
Get the guys.
It was a very well shared deleted scene that a lot of people suspect was actually in the movie who didn't see it, but it's not.
It was in the trailer though, right?
Nope.
No, that one was not in the trailer.
Oh, it never went in the trailer?
The scene is extended in the deleted scene, and you actually see a little bit of conflict back and forth play out in a more physical way in the deleted scene. So, an extended.
Let me give my thoughts on the movie in terms of why I think it does not work. So, are there positives in this film? Let's just go. I'll come back to that in a moment. To me, this movie is sort of like when you play a video game, you will come to a level. Let's say that you're enjoying the game. Let's say it's Mario Wonder, or it's an old Sonic game from the Sega Genesis, or whatever it is. You'll come to a level where there's a gimmick that doesn't work, and you want the gimmick to stop, and you play through that level knowing, okay, the rest of the game will be great, and we can get back to that as soon as this level's over. And so maybe that's an underwater level. Maybe it's a level where everything's dark around you, and you have to find the little torch lights to be able to see the level again. Maybe for you don't like the ghost houses in Mario or what have you. This movie to me is that level, but it never stops. I could have, the only reason I see for them having these powers that are shared that swap them in their positions, and by the way, folks, spoilers 100% coming up. The only reason I see for that is a script contrivance to make sure that Miss Marvel has to be with them. But
Yes.
that could have been worked around easily. And this should have stopped within the first 5 minutes. It was nauseating and annoying. There's another situation here too, which is that Rita Repulsa, which is what I consider this villain to be. She is Girl Ronin, but Rita Repulsa will work for now. She does not have a fleshed out backstory enough that is sufficient that you care about her, and you need to care about the villain. She's one of the worst MCU villains I've ever seen, and that's really saying something considering this is the MCU. Her plan is essentially to open up wormholes in space and suck the good stuff out of the planets or the stars that she needs to revive her homeworld.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that is, I believe, the premise of a single comic strip from Calvin and Hobbes back from a Sunday panel from Spaceman Spiff, and I think that was sufficient. We didn't need an entire movie of it. So she sucks the air out of a planet in order to give her planet air again.
Spaceballs.
Exactly.
Good point. I didn't think about that.
But the huge flaw in this movie with this situation is we need to see the planet that is having the air sucked out of it be destroyed. The civilization's destroyed. And instead, we get a very small seaside, I don't know what you call this thing, a seaside resort. I don't know. It's so tiny and local that you don't have the impact of realizing that an entire planet has been destroyed. You then have the exact same situation with the water planet. Mm-hmm. And again, you don't get to see the entire planet going under, if it did at all, and it makes it feel very small. And then there's so much exposition in the movie that it leads me to believe, and script, maybe you might know this, it leads me to believe that this movie was reshot so many times, and then in reshooting it, they didn't have the ability to go back and show these things. So they just had to have the three women stand there and give exposition at length about what now is happening in the new script. That's all I can come up with for why this lands the way that it does. The worst, though, the most egregious sin, I think, of the movie in terms of just being utterly contrived is when one of our heroes needs to close off a rip in the dimensional space so that, once again, the multiverse doesn't come into our multiverse, although Doctor Strange should be able to fix it. He fixes everything. But that hero, for no apparent reason whatsoever, goes into the other side of the rift to close it. There's no reason given for that. And then, just out of the blue, is locked in that other dimension, despite the fact that was never raised as an issue for her closing it in the first place.
You know what's funny is I thought when you were leading up to this, until you got to the dimensional rift, I thought you were going to talk about how somebody lost the item that gives them their superpowers. But all of a sudden,
that too.
Still
I could keep going.
Superpowers.
Yes, and we could keep going on that too. And the hammer that the villain has, I don't understand it. And if you don't explain something to me, then I don't care about it. And I don't,
They did a terrible job explaining it because, for all intents and purposes, this lady, this Kree woman, is a normal Kree soldier. So why is she the big bad?
Exactly.
And the bracelet doesn't justify that explanation enough. It's basically like it's a quantum band, and for those of you who are not familiar with Marvel Comics, the quantum bands are actually used by a male superhero named Quasar, who is a mix of Clark Kent, Superman, and Green Lantern, essentially, for Marvel. But yes, there's a lot of contrivance. One of the things I know is that before the actor strike, Teyonah Parris was pregnant when they had to go back for reshoots, and you can tell when she's pregnant because she's wearing the bigger clothes. And there's no wide shots of her when she isn't wearing the bigger clothes. That's when the reshoots happen. That would be earlier this year, right before the strike concluded. And you'll notice there was a lot of scenes of them in Captain Marvel's starship talking and expositing and figuring out things that they otherwise should not have known. And you're very correct, Pro. I was hoping to see the fallout of these planets that are being destroyed. And I would have also really appreciated if she somehow pulled, a Superman and managed to return the atmosphere and water to the planets that had them stolen, because that would make them a hero.
They left those completely out script.
It's disposable. That's the thing.
Right.
They turned this conflict. They made it very disposable. They also solved the Captain Marvel is so powerful. She can reignite a sun. It's like, that has no effort. There's no guile. There's no wit. There's no creativity.
And she pops out in 5 seconds.
Yeah, and there's no imagination to any of this stuff.
And there's no cost. I thought she was like sacrificing herself or something. And then I thought, well, this is the strangest thing, because they didn't do any build up to this. And then she pops out of that sun after 5 seconds. I thought, well, this woman can power the universe. There's no stopping her.
What if you just fix everybody's problems?
She has the physical embodiment of a Infinity Stone within her that gives her power, but there was no consequences to the fact that it's like she said, I could totally reignite that sun, but then I wouldn't be around to save all these other species from their conflicts. And it's like, well, what do? You could, and they should have reconciled to the fact that, well, a lot of these conflicts are caused by the Kree because they don't have their world anymore. So if you save the sun, hence sacrificing yourself, the Kree wouldn't be doing this anymore. It would have less justification to do it, and perhaps give them a chance to restore their homeworld, in which case your sacrifice ends the conflicts that you have been spending the last 30 years trying to mitigate. And she does it, and she could probably survive by the skin of her teeth as a result of it. And then it shows like, man, she really put herself on the line to try and right a mistake that she made, because that's what they were trying to incite, is that post Captain Marvel, she destroyed the Supreme Intelligence, which caused a ripple effect. And the Kree are doing more horrible things to other species and the Skrulls and whatnot as a result of her actions. And that's what motivated this normal Kree soldier, this woman Kree soldier, who they really should not have given her blonde hair, because some of the fight scenes between those 3 women, you think Brie Larson's fighting against herself.
And they're popping in and out, so that's plenty confusing.
This is also confusing. Why isn't she blue?
I know, she should have been blue.
It's so they're not even consistent with themselves and their own lore, which I thought was kind of the point of the Marvel Cinematic Universe here. It's funny. The preview was for Mean Girls, and I almost wanted to say about the rest of the Kree, why aren't you black now?
I think the other major flaw with this movie is that in the past, at least when Marvel began, you could tell which characters had which powers, and they were simple to understand. Mm-hmm. Hulk gets angry, Hulk gets big and strong. Captain America has super athletic strength and a shield. Iron Man can fly and has gadgets. We could keep going. They're understandable.
But do you understand?
I don't know
why
what any of these characters do.
I've brought this up many times. The Avengers, well, it seems like it's action figures banging together. All of those fights are level setting about what everyone can do, who is stronger than who, what happens when Thor's lightning hits Iron Man, what happens when Mjolnir hits Captain America's shield. Whether or not we realize it, we're getting a visual representation of information here that the audience can absorb and understand what is going on. There was some artistry to those fight scenes.
And that is why this feels like Power Rangers.
Well, actually, I Rita Repulsa is fun as a villain. I just got to.
This feels like but this feels like early '90s. Like if you gave me this script for one episode of the Power Rangers from the mid '90s, I'd go, yeah, we can fly with that for 20 minutes for a Saturday AM show.
Right. Yeah. I'll say something positive. The Kamala Khan's parents are hilarious. I actually like them a lot, and it makes me want to go back and rewatch Miss Marvel. I never finished that one.
Well, let's talk about the two.
Let's save that show.
Let's talk about the 2 scenes. Go ahead, Script, and I want to talk about the 2 scenes that people have been talking about and what we think of them.
Well, I will say, the parents steal the show. You actually understand what's going on with them and with the very little screen time that they have. And what's disappointing is that for reasons, they're brought aboard the Saber space station, and the entire Saber subplot is completely superfluous. You don't even need it.
Wow. and a lot of money was spent on the saber sequences. Ridiculous things that I texted someone what happened in the resolution of that, and it made no sense whatsoever. Are we just going to go ahead and spoil it?
I don't think this movie. I don't think can be spoiled.
Everyone is saved by being swallowed by space kittens.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't work because they're not the bad guys. And so therefore, I don't understand why they're terrified. Nobody is harmed. It doesn't seem to be painful. And yet they're all running and screaming like it's Guardians of the Galaxies with some sort of clever music behind it. And for like 5 seconds, it's amusing. And then you go, oh, this has destroyed all the stakes in the movie. This is no longer, I don't feel like there's any chance our heroes will be destroyed because I'm watching space kitties devouring the good guys as they run and scream like cowards.
Or how about that? Apparently, Miss Marvel has the superpower of wrangling her scarf through the air in order to fight soldiers, even though she's just a teenage girl.
Well, she was already doing like triple flip kicks and all kinds of stuff before that. So I mean, there's no consistency whatsoever. But of course, there's another scene that everybody's going to be talking about. We're talking about the musical Planet. What did you think of Musical Planet?
Contrived.
Very. It felt like somebody threw a spitball on a board of ideas, and they said, "We'll do that."
Yeah, that to me, I put that to Joss Whedon. Everybody's they're taking the wrong lessons from Joss Whedon there.
He has very few good ones. That's the problem. Is like there's more bad than good.
Mm-hmm.
We have waiting in the wings someone who has a tremendous track record in Hollywood, and I'm hoping that he can give us some insight into where this all went wrong. Folks, please welcome once again Mr. Lou Wasserman's Ghost.
Good evening, everyone.
Happy to have you, sir.
Let me disclaim by saying I haven't seen it. I ain't going to see it, but I've been hearing all of this and other reviews. The first thing is what you said about understanding the original heroes and, Hulk smash and Cap throws the shield. It's because the comic books didn't have 32 movies to explain it to you. They had one comic book to premiere a hero that you had to get it all right away. They had wonderfully condensed exposition because they had to. These guys, well, we'll just wander around for a movie or 3 or 12 or whatever. And it never works. It never works.
The other thing, I want to make sure that I say this about this movie. You all remember in the interviews where the original stars of Star Wars critiqued George Lucas lovingly and said that they presented them with scripts that they would read it and then they would say, nobody talks like this. We can't say it this way. We've got to change it. This movie felt to me...
I don't know if we can say the direct quote from Harrison Ford. It's like, it was something to the effect of, George, you can write this stuff, but that doesn't mean we can say it.
Right. But this movie feels like someone should have said that. Folks, there are vast periods of time of exposition, of just standing and talking exposition. And in those, they would be easier to swallow if I thought they were speaking English. But especially if you have not ever been into comic books, I'm telling you right now, if you've just got a normie, a 40-year-old normie walking in there and watching this movie, they're going to say, I have no idea what language this is that they're talking
Actually,
about.
there was one scene where I thought, was that line even in English? And it was in the post-credit scene that takes place in... they say something about somebody speaking gibberish. And for the life of me, I thought that Binary, which is a hilarious name for a superhero.
Recent Marvel character, too.
Yeah. Binary said something, and I thought, was she just speaking French? I don't know what she just said.
By the way, was there anybody there when you guys went to see it?
No. I've got pictures up on my Twitter of the empty theater. I could hear Taylor Swift eras going in the next theater over. And somebody said, well, why is there anything on the screen? So I turned my flash on during the movie, and I'm not bothering anybody. I will also say that as soon as the credits came on, the guys flicked the light switch on like, okay, get out of here, loser.
Yeah, I had two others. I was watching it on my computer with my friend who provided me the screener. So I didn't.
So this is what I was thinking about in preparation for joining you all today. I want you to imagine a 16, 17, 18, whatever year old girl who doesn't watch this channel, who doesn't follow all the backstage, who doesn't know about Bob Iger and only knows about KK because of Cartman. And she's excited. And she and her friends are excited. And 6, 8, 10 weeks ago, whenever the tickets were first available, man, they went on the website and, hey, we're ahead of everybody else. We got the good seats. And we better get there early. And we better get our popcorn. And they go, and they're all excited. And they go in, and they sit down, and they're waiting the 20 minutes they expected. And they're looking around saying, God, was there a traffic accident? Where's everybody? Boy, the popcorn counter must be jammed. Where is everybody? And the lights go down, and it's still just them. And then they watch this thing, and all of their friends at school tomorrow are going to ask, how was it? What are they going to say?
Well, I've got an answer to some degree, Lou, but finish your thought. I cut you off on accident.
But I mean, you know, the whole buzzkill of the empty theaters and of the feeling like you were taken for a ride is palpable with this thing. It just got to be. And that's what kills franchises and studios and everything to follow.
Folks, we're in heavy spoiler territory. I was going to show, and we might mention it later, but I was going to show you all how the review score has climbed since yesterday, going from 22% on Rotten Tomatoes for top critics until now. We're all the way up to 60% for all critics. And I want everybody to remember the term review harvesting. We'll come back to that in a little bit, but Lou, we can't lose what you're saying. This is brand new out of Collider just 1 hour ago by Jeffrey Harris. Are these young heroes finally getting their own project? Does the Marvels set up the Young Avengers? This is what they want. This is the Access Media article, you know, that is supposed to tie into everyone being excited and reading all of this. And there is a cameo here that sets up the Young Avengers. But I got to say, given how bad this movie is, I can't imagine that, well, yes, I can. I can imagine that they'll go through with the Young Avengers. But I can't imagine that it is a winning financial proposition any longer.
Do they have to have Samuel Jackson call them together and say, well, we had this idea about a Young Avengers project?
Oh, can we just describe the scene?
Kamala that does it.
Yeah, it is Kamala. It's set up like the it is actually a direct send up of the scene in Iron Man. Kamala's sitting there in the dark, and she's got the hood over, so you don't quite know who it is, but they kind of set it up in the previous scene. By the way, it's not post credits. It's like Incredible Hulk, right after, before the credits. And Kate Bishop, who is Hawkeye in this universe, for now, she comes in and, Kamala's doing her, we're aware of you, whatever. You think you're part of a bigger universe. And then she does her adorkable, actually, that universe is just me. And I'm just a kid, which is, by the way, not anything a 16 or 17-year-old would call themselves. And talks about setting up a kid Avengers, which is why I say this is like a Power Rangers episode or maybe Spy Kids.
Doesn't the Young Avengers feature heroes like Squirrel Girl?
That would be cool.
At this point.
Yep. Which is weird because I think Squirrel Girl is an invention of the creator of the Tick, because I remember that character in the Tick cartoon show. Her channel was I Like Squirrels.
That's where we are, guys.
Doesn't it have to be a cat wrangler with this one? I don't know. Somebody whose power is that they get cats to be herded.
I don't know why the cats were in this movie at all. The cats are so stupid. They're so stupid.
I will point out that
the Saber station was compromised because their eggs were everywhere or something like that. I can't remember. It was just
eggs that look like brains.
I will admit that I didn't pay a lot of attention to that stream the other day with the cats all day long that was on their channel. Hardly any. But
the stream made
I never got until I read the reviews today and heard from you guys that those cats are in the movie. I just thought they had cats because, hey, people like cats. I never even made that connection.
It's so bad.
The strange thing is that the cats don't seem to be rendered very well either. So it seems like they were probably expanded later in the process.
Especially when Samuel L. Jackson is petting one of them. That was just so terrible. They didn't even get the fur right while he's petting it, and it immediately pulls you out of the movie because you're like, what is... It's a CGI cat. Come on, let him pet a real cat.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. And then I'll say something about the Young Avengers.
I was just going to ask, what was the quality of the visual effects overall? Because now with a kind of a change in scenery.
Uneven. Sometimes it was video game-esque, and sometimes it was not.
Well, I said before,
better than Quantumania.
I said before that people knew that Indy was going to be a stinker, and my proof was they never did anything in the parks. They didn't put those characters into the stunt show. They didn't have meet and greets, and that stuff takes time to plan. So very, very early they knew. Well, with this, with what you guys have all said about how disjointed it is there a certain point where they said, why should we spend more money to fix these things? It ain't going to go anywhere anyway.
Lou, Indy even had toys. Even though they were terrible.
It's a whole other story. But I'm just saying, at what point did they give up and you get what you get?
Well, they did move this from Haunted Mansion slot back in, July 28th, right, I believe, and I moved it back 4 months. I'm so surprised that it's still undercooked, given that they spent, gross $274 million on this thing and moved it back. I am just shocked that this thing is so half-baked as it is.
Well, when they found out what they reshot prior to the move, and that it performed 2 points lower than the previous version, they had to hit the edit suite again. In 4 months editing, just trying to get a cohesive 98-minute movie. And they definitely failed on the cohesive part of it because it's a plot-driven film, and it's a terrible plot-driven film because plot-driven films are terrible. You show me a plot-driven film that's good, I'll show you how it's really character-driven, and you just didn't pay attention.
Yes.
But this is a plot-driven film, and where characters are put together for the sake of the plot, things are discarded for the sake of getting characters from point A to point B, and it's void of any type of catharsis or emotional connection to what is happening on the screen.
Oh, they tried, didn't they? They tried with a couple of those really awkward scenes where they're like, I'm going to be emotional with you right now for no reason.
God. I swear the tear from Bree was CGI, and then when they cut back, they do a cut, and when they come back to her, the CGI tear is gone, and that's just laziness. Utter laziness.
I just thought of something. A few years ago, somebody came out with an app for your phone that was called, are you ready? Go Run Pee.
Oh,
and
yeah.
The idea was that when a new movie came out, they went and monitored it and figured out if you sat there in the theater with their app, it would tell you when we're about to have a 10-minute exposition scene you don't have to be there for, so you can go and run and pee. This thing sounds like it would have had a whole lot of
run diarrhea.
Yeah. Around 40 minutes. 40 minutes. You could totally, go for a walk around the theater, go to the bathroom, refill your soda and popcorn, come back in and not miss a beat.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the cast of this. I'm looking at the writing team, looking at the directing team. A lot of small projects, a lot of indie films. Let's say before this is the first film I think from a lot of this team in which they've worked in the level of a film this big at over $220 million net. Like Indiana Jones, at least it makes sense. You have an experienced team back there, experienced director and all that, experienced producers. Is it wise to be handing off these, $200+ million films to people so inexperienced with the results like this?
The intention here is that the producer is going to make up for it. That's the whole idea here. That was the Bruckheimer model, is you get somebody who's not experienced on this big budget stuff, and you have the producers team covering that. Am I understanding that correctly, Lou, script?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
but we just heard Bob tell us how they're going to put the inexperienced people on the little projects to grow themselves some talent. Well, this is not a little project.
Yeah, so
the thing is, that's the old school model, because what they're doing now is with what I like to call plug and play production, because the producers love to have control over their dream projects, and I mean love to have control, and it's really hard when you're like, man, I need the best director to make my passion project, but the best director comes in and says, dude, all your ideas for this concept do not gel well with it. We got to rework it, and that pisses a producer off. But you grab someone out of the independent sphere who's desperate for a job, desperate to make a name for themselves. And even if they see the problems, they're not going to speak up because they need this job more than the producer needs them. Mm-hmm. And that's how you get Nia DaCosta. That's how you get the Russo brothers. That's how you get the people that were directing the other Marvel films or the bad Marvel Disney Plus shows. They need the credit and whatever money they can squeeze out of Disney more than the other way around. And when you have a team like that, you basically don't have any creative input from them. They're just there to fill a role. And it may be upsetting to hear from an audience that, yeah, they took a job when they really should have said no. But when you're in the entertainment industry, jobs are few and far between.
Of course.
Very, very competitive.
And further, when you have people in the executive suite who are writing you and telling you what to do, are you directing the movie or are they?
Exactly.
Right. They're directing you, directing the movie.
And this was a very paint by numbers film.
Yeah. So the Indiana Jones, by the way, I heard the conversation before. No, it did not cost $300 million. It cost 250 million Great British pounds, which the equivalent right now. And by the way, that's as of April of last year.
And
I
that's
have
only the stuff done in
documentation.
the UK. That's not the above the line, and that's
No,
not.
though that's the above the well, of course, yeah, the big.
It's only
actor
the stuff for
salaries.
the tax credits. The tax credits are all about getting employment in the UK or in any state in the Union or Canada. So it's only
Right.
covering the
So
people local.
everything that they spent after April of last year, which looking at that movie, and fairly certain they spent money after April of last year. So the thing I want to say is Marvel has been setting up Young Avengers for a while now. They're just getting more explicit with it as they go along. There was a young Falcon character in Captain Falcon or Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Speedball and Wiccan and WandaVision. They're working hard to get teenage superheroes together, and I don't think Sony will allow them to use Spider-Man for that, but they have a long list of side characters that are ready to be the sidekicks to the the sidekicks that are now the main heroes here in the current Marvel phases. So.
We might note that with all the kerfuffle on the other studio side, on the DC universe, haven't heard about a Teen Titans movie, have you?
Good.
Somebody
Teen Titans
realized
show?
that
It's
isn't a
terrible.
good idea over there, and hey.
I don't
Well,
think
the
David
Teen Titans would be
Zaslav's going to let
great.
them do
The problem
that.
is, what version of Teen Titans are you going to do? And are you
Right.
going to get someone that actually understands the resonation and the covert aspect of what the Teen Titans did? Because that's one of the things that Greg Weisman did with the Young Justice cartoon is like, if he's having these teenagers, we're going to put them in covert situations where if they get caught, we know they're going to die. So the idea is to write them in stories where they can't get caught, a little Mission Impossible style from the 60s. The whole idea is for them not to be found, not to be known that they're doing this stuff, and get away without severe consequences or a fight, which is rather ingenious because you're putting these younger characters in compromising positions. You put them on the front line, an audience is going to be like, well, they're dead. But you put them in ways where kids can hide.
It's a very good point.
That's good.
What the audience never says in this movie.
Script, how much do you think they're thinking, well, gee, the Teen Angst thing worked for all those X-Men movies, maybe we can do it too? And the answer is it worked it to death, I think, in the X-Men.
And also were doomed from the beginning, even though they were very popular films, mainly due to them leaning on Wolverine and Hugh Jackman. They didn't really lean on any of the other characters, and they had a stellar cast for those films.
Yeah.
And they just keep on repeating the same mistakes, and that's been a flaw of Hollywood for the last 30 odd years. If you want to go back even further to the late 60s, is they just keep on doing the same tried and true stuff instead of realizing, well, okay, we did that. Well, how do we do something new with it without betraying what made it popular in the first place? Like, those questions are rarely asked because the people in charge, who especially write the checks, don't want to think about how they can pull that off or risk losing bigger if they fail. And it's tragic because there's no, in our culture today, there's less encouragement in fostering imagination, creativity, and curiosity than there ever was in generations prior. And and we're seeing that reflected in our entertainment. We're seeing that reflected in our investigations of reportings, and we're seeing that reflected in people who are running for office.
It's a case of CYA, because as long as you have a good excuse, which, well, it was based on this one that worked.
Yeah.
That's my reason for doing it. Not that I had anything that worked, but by golly, the last 12 did, or 20 movies ago did.
Like, Iron Man was a fluke. Like, the only thing I know about the tumultuous production because I was in town at the time, but like, they had all their sets built and ready to go. They knew how the movie was going to be. The problem was that the dialogue and the character development was very weak. And it was Robert Downey Jr. and Jon Favreau that decided we have to rewrite these scenes. And they rewrote them literally up to the wire, to the point where they had the finished revised pages and sides for the actors minutes before they actually started rolling on film.
Yeah.
And the fact that they pulled it off is a miracle. And Iron Man has some severe third act problems, because I remember seeing some test footage of some really cool stuff with Iron Man and Ironmonger, in the Tony Stark's power plant scene. They were cut and not used in the movie because they just didn't have time to refine the effects and get them in there and make it work. But you see a lot of emotional stills from those shots.
Actually, I'd love to see those. I'm going to have to Google those now. It doesn't make any sense that Ironmonger all of a sudden decides, what if I just murder everyone? It's an unusual turn for that character.
Well, to interject here quickly, Jonas, I hope all of you out there will not murder the thumbs up button, but we sure would like it if you liked the video anyway. We are at 360 likes. We've got over 1,000 of you out there. If just a few of you out there would take the time to click it, you can stick it to the algorithms. Click that like button, and let's get to 500. And Jonas, I want to go to Super Chats because we don't want to leave the folks waiting any longer. But before we do, the three of us who have seen the film, I think we should perhaps provide a numerical score. I'm going to do a 0 to 10 score. Let's go through. Script, you tell me, what do you think The Marvels earns in terms of a 0 to 10 score? 0 terrible, 10 is the perfect movie. What do you think?
3. If when it earns, it's probably going to be a 30% of projected discussion in the end of the day. I'm talking full global box office run.
Jonas?
I still am kind of the inclination that if I were grading this ABCD F, it would be an I for incomplete. So I'm gonna agree with Script. It's a 3,
and I'm gonna give it a 2.5. So that's where I think this lands. I think that Quantumania is very slightly worse than this. However, in terms of the impact and what this will do to the MCU and to Disney at large, I think this is far worse. And at least partially because Disney has been enjoying a very fun ride today with their stock after the highly charismatic and positive and upbeat earnings report yesterday from Iger, which may or may not have any substance to it. But this, the world runs on news cycles. And this is going to decimate the Disney news cycle for the weekend as those actual box office numbers come in.
They'll have a mixed bump, too, because SAG has made a deal with the AMPTP. If it gets ratified, that's going to give Disney a bump because investors are going to be like, okay, they're getting back to work. However, depending on what Disney decides to promote of that work they want to get back to will determine their next rise.
Hold on to that thought, Script, because that is our very next topic. Jonas, Super Chats.
All right. Charger the comic number 2 for $2 Canadian. We're going to talk Backlash to Zelda being live action.
We sure will. It's on my list now.
Yep. Avi Arad, for those not aware, is involved, and Miyamoto seems to like him, which is worrisome to me.
Yes, it is.
Black shirts for $9.99. Jonas, is it woke or can I take the kids? Well, if you took your kids to Guardians of the Galaxy, you'd be probably fine with the level of language in this. I felt like there was probably some unnecessary cursing in the first part of the film, but it's not anything you wouldn't expect from a PG-13 film. It's that old level of woke where they just throw some line in there about the horrors of fracking just for no reason, and then you move on with it. That old one.
Fracking script.
The thing is, like, it's nowhere near as preachy. In fact, there's no preachiness in it at all. It's really just, oh, here's an idea, and then thrown and discarded as quickly as possible. And I would say probably would pass the woke smell. In fact, that it's not.
Yeah, it's not. It's not woke. And the first film was more woke than this one by far.
Yeah.
So, Big Blue Horses for $2. I saw it. What a disjointed cluster fudge. 3 out of 10.
Everybody's landing on 3s. I'm the 2.5. I think as people sit on this a little bit longer, I think it does. It struggles to hit the 3.
Agreed. Floral from Under a Rock for $2 Canadian. Hannah Montana in space.
It's a little harsh for Hannah Montana.
Yeah,
Man.
But fair. I mean, that's a fair assessment,
especially given the musical Planet.
I would put it about that level of writing, although the performances are a little bit better. So
yeah.
Slade Wilson, the band man, for $10. Thank you for the squeaky clean super chat. 1, I loved reading the credits. They had 2 science advisors. There was a lot of science dialogue from Photon, and yet dissipating atmospheres cause mountains to fall.
Again,
that's exactly right, Slade.
You don't have to listen to them.
That's right, and they're often there just to give you jargon.
And for $5, Slade continues, thank you. You can scream and breathe in space, and shining a light into a star recharges the protein fusion nuclear reactions.
Not the protein, the proton. We're not cellular here.
Sorry, proton. Did I say photon or when I
think you said protein?
Oh, sorry, my
The
mistake.
proton with the fusion has the cats that are true.
Right,
That's right.
Photons are produced by a fusion reaction, not the other way around. Yeah, the idea that these are all light-based powers is ridiculous. Honestly, obviously, Quasar's powers being light-based. Okay, yeah.
Maybe it was best that this not be positioned right next to Oppenheimer. Maybe that was a good thing.
I enjoyed that.
Hannah Montana, it's best that it's not playing right next to Taylor Swift in the next theater.
I enjoyed that the villain, our super villain, is destroyed. Again, folks, spoilers. Although you cannot spoil this film, it's impossible to do so.
It came pre-spoiled.
But that's right. You can't ruin spoiled milk.
Fermented.
But our villain, she wears the 2 bracelets and claps them together, and she's disintegrated. And immediately after that, they're like, "Hey, let's put those on the 16-year-old and see what happens."
Yep.
I love it.
Oh no, it's completely contrived. It's like we don't have a way for them to defeat this normal Kree soldier, so she has to die herself in a very, like, I think I've seen that trope a lot in the 90s in some of the terrible sci-fi TV shows and Disney or Family Channel things where the bad guy gets the thing that they want and then they just die. And it's not as nearly as inventive.
Script.
It's not nearly as inventive as picking the wrong chalice and at the end of The Last Crusade, right?
I knew where you were going.
Did you notice they added like a stabbing sound to a rock falling on her as well, just to really sell the idea that killed her? I bet she was about to
penetrate her chest, and yet she walks it off like it's nothing once it's lifted off of her.
Also, what happened to the other bangle? That went into nowhere. Yeah.
She was supposed to have both of them at the end when she went to see her parents, but only had one, which tells me that was a reshot.
She put it in her high school locker. It's the next big shenanigan movie.
It's like Finn shouting, "Ray, I have to tell you something." All right. Slade Wilson for $5. I'm going to leave it, bud. Binary was a name Carol Danvers took when she absorbed the energy of a white star and got cosmic powers back when she was BA. Carol Danvers was a much better character in the comic books before.
And if you watch the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoons, they actually nail a very compelling and engaging Carol Danvers, because one of the things that upset me the most about the Captain Marvel film is Carol Danvers was an accomplished colonel in the Air Force, and she falls in love with a scientist who goes by the name Marvel, but he's got a pseudonym. And when he dies saving her, which then gives her powers, she honors him by taking his name as Captain Marvel. It's because an unrequited love, a love lost, love lorn. And it's a very fair and compassionate story. And then when she finds out later that he survived and that he's an alien Kree and whatnot, and that he's leading a vanguard on Earth, she gets really upset, and justifiably so. And there's good conflict there. And it's like, okay, you have these story beats. These are from the comics. Where was that in your 1996-ish style Captain Marvel film? Oh, you didn't want to do it? Okay, fine, but give us something. And their love story was love between friendships and pseudo aunt to little kid who looks up to her for reasons.
Weird.
Can I tell you guys something that I forgot real quick? Because I forgot this happened in the theater, and it's just too funny. So at the end of the movie, Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel both go get into an airplane, and they quit putting stuff in the house. Right? They're moving into the house in Louisiana. They stop all that, leave it to Miss Marvel's family to do it. You know, they don't care. They'll do anything. So they run and they get in the plane, and Miss Marvel is all excited because they're going to take off. And she turns to Captain Marvel, and Captain Marvel, who has jumped in this plane with her, as if, oh boy. Captain Marvel says, "Oh, I don't actually have the keys." And the one other guy in the theater for my screening threw his head back and went, "Oh."
Yeah. Does anybody know? Anybody here know anybody that owns a plane?
Yes.
And just sits it in the front yard with no key.
You don't keep that thing out in the front yard.
So the
talk about the weed eating they have to do.
The tagline was, "You'll believe a woman can fly, Coach."
No. Can we put that on the driveway or a pad or something? I mean, really, it's in the way of the mower. Please.
Well, it should really be in a barn or some sort of housing.
Yeah, that's why they have
randomly in the front yard.
It seems like a great way to die in your next flight.
I can't tell you how many times somebody said, "Hey, bro, let's go get in the truck. Let's go get in the car." And you run in there, and they're like, "Okay, take me for a ride." I know I hopped in here with you. We were both really excited, but I've never had the key to this.
Yeah, they needed to.
Joke's on you.
They forgot they were in a movie, and they just needed to let the sun visor down, and it drop into their hands.
Or she could have made a little light-based key, you know, and be like, haha, now you can fly it.
Perfect. Jason Barnes for $5. It's important. It's impossible to spoil a movie that stinks and no one wanted to see anyway. Haha. Disney spoiled it by making it a dumpster fire. Yeah, I'd like to know where the rest of this movie is.
Well, it's better than Quantumania, but that's not saying much.
Yeah. Slade Wilson again for $5.
Oh, Jonas, real quick too. Let me say this. Lest anyone out there think that we're just totally negative. Remember, we gave, or at least I did, I gave Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 an 8 out of 10 this year. So Marvel has done something much, much better. It's just too bad it was done by their main competitor now. Go ahead.
Yep. Slade Wilson for $5. By the way, I was right all along. The tentacle tongue cat was licking itself. Told you.
Licking its nether regions. How's that, Jonas?
Yeah, absolutely. They had it on screen. Hashtag Slade Wilson was right.
Cleaning the unmentionables, shall we say.
Yep. And Nick Fury is screaming at it to stop the whole time. I don't know what their idea is about Nick Fury in the Captain Marvel series, specifically being the worst and silliest incarnation of Nick Fury, but he is a different character in the Marvel franchise.
Was there any line that Samuel L. Jackson had in this that was not a joke?
He screamed one when he told everybody to get on the evacuation deck for just a moment. That one was not a joke, although it was a lead up to a joke, which was the entire scene.
He should have been in that scene you mentioned with the airplane, and he should have been yelling, "I'm tired of these MFing cats on this MFing plane."
That was a better movie.
No, I mean, here's the thing that's weird is that he did have something in jokes that were actually fairly okay. Like when he finds out the son is praying and he's like, "Are you praying?" And he's like, "Don't stop. We need all the help." I mean, that's a good joke.
Yeah, that was one of two times in the movie that I smiled.
Yeah, because I'm like, well, I mean, that's a fairly good joke because that's also in keeping with Nick Fury. Is like, listen, if all we got is luck, I'm not going to dissuade luck.
Mm-hmm.
Another one where they're falling and then it turns out to be Carol. He's like, "Oh, it's cool. It's just Carol." And I'm like,
right.
Okay,
that was a good one. Yeah.
That was
also,
a good one.
Like the only way they could have resolved that. I'm like, are they? She's got to learn to fly here, right? Also, all of them learning learning all of their powers on the fly was weird.
The skipping scene was also weird.
Yeah,
this jump rope scheme that was like only not women, only girls would do that, and that's the thing that bothered me is that these should have been women. But they were portrayed as if they were.
You're saying that if Tony Stark and the other Avengers practiced by doing hopscotch, you would find that weird, strange, bizarre.
I would find it weird if they were playing like the tennis ball against the wall game, like dart or whatever heck you call acronym you want to throw out there. I would find it weird if they were doing that or like squash or something, but as well. But like, yeah, it just doesn't fit.
By the way, does anybody else like me bemoan the fact that our age is wasting and destroying these really talented people? Samuel L. Jackson, Robert Downey. We talked the other day about, well, he's not going to get gigs like Oppenheimer as often, so what the heck he's going to do this? These people are really good, and they really, really made some wonderful things, and now we're just sort of, they're chewing gum for these silly movies.
They are indeed. I can't find any better way to describe what just happened on this screen.
And on that note, I'm just going to point out Slade Wilson, the band man, said, "I actually liked Iman Vellani. Movie still stinks." Yes, I agree with you. She's actually really good consistently. There's a few moments where they abuse her a little bit. Abuse the use of the character a little bit by making her.
Abuse her.
The strange thing about her is she has a one in the world, a unique scream, yell, but still, what would you say, spunky kind of thing that she does. And she does it over and over and over. And I don't know anyone else who can do what she does there. Maybe there is someone. Maybe she's invented it.
That is a Greater Toronto Area Valley Girl scream. Having lived in that area for many, many years, you hear
I won't attempt it. I promise you that.
You hear that at clubs, you hear that at bars, you hear that at concerts. It's like, oh, yeah, that's the Canadian. I know that Canadian Valley Girl, Southern Ontario.
I stand corrected, folks. It is from the Toronto area.
So it's okay, fine, for sure.
Sometimes, yeah.
So I want to say thank you specifically to Dr. J with a 20 Australian dollars super chat. Thank you so much. Guys, am I right in thinking the Young Avengers will be made up of Kamala Khan, Kate Bishop, Cassie Lang, America Chavez, Ironheart, Hulkling, yeah, if we remember him from the end of She-Hulk, and Wiccan? Is that film really going to fly? I'll also add Joaquin something that's in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They've got.
They would like to do this, yes. I think this is the original plan. With this having performed so poorly, and with some of the other shows on Disney Plus having done so badly, they're not going to throw away Kate Bishop, right? They're not going to throw that away. But I guess I can see them trying it. But
as a feature or as a Disney Plus show? I don't think
it would have to be Disney Plus. They
Yeah.
cannot
People are
lose this kind of
expensive at
money.
the Disney Plus show. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's true. They would have some chance of making some money if they put it in theaters, but
they also don't run the risk of being embarrassed by the box office.
Right.
Because, yeah.
I think they've grown some thick enough skin on that right now in the last few years.
They're about 72 hours. They're going to be really tough on that now.
I mean, if they go hard on the John Hughes style and want to do a bunch of kids teenager movies, I don't mind as long as they're good. I don't care.
Yep.
I mean, Far From Home was not at all my favorite Spider-Man film, but at least it was consistent with the character. At least you were developing relationships. There were funny moments, but whatever this was, they don't need to keep doing this.
Ooh, John Hughes, you do super detention.
Are okay. They're just not utilized or expanded upon properly for three-dimensional characters. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Lou, but
No, that's okay. I was just saying if they want to go John Hughes, they could have them all in super detention.
I just want to.
I also say too here. Go ahead, Jonas.
I'm throwing this up on the screen. Do you know whose 2-star review this is of Captain Marvel?
I do, but only because you have shown this.
This is Aman Vellani's 2-star review of Captain Marvel. These stars are not for Brie Larson. I will sacrifice my own life for Brie Larson.
Well, this review got her noticed because she was no real legitimate talent in the industry beforehand. She was one of the fangirls that, for some strange reason, the powers that be Marvel said, if she can act, let's hire her as Kamala Khan. And apparently she did a really good job reading a sample.
Yep, they've got something there with that girl. I'm not trying to insult her, and I do think that Brie Larson gave at least a better comedic performance. I'll
say this about the teenage Young Avengers. If they're going to do that, they better do it fast because Haley Steinfeld is 26 years old by the time they get something out. She's going to be far closer to 30 than a teenager.
Well, they'll do the same de-aging they did with Harrison Ford.
That's a good idea. That worked out.
Sith Holocron for $2 says, thank you for covering Zelda so well, pro and panel. Well, we did cover it on That Park Place, which segment in there from Cinepark Rangers came in. And he did a really good job covering that. And, of course, we covered it on thatparkplace.com as well.
Absolutely.
So, yep. Ministry of Wrongthink, member for 5 months, says Loki's finale will save the Marvels. Just wait. Yeah, that comes out in about 2 hours now, doesn't it?
There's no way that finale has anything to do with what happened in the Marvels. I can't see a bridge to those two properties.
Why are you all reminding me that Lauren and I, after this live show, almost immediately, we'll be watching Loki to do the review tonight? Why?
Nothing's going to happen in it. You do know that.
I know. Yet I am forced to do it.
This has been a long week for you between the call yesterday and gosh.
Who is the one in mythology who constantly has to push the boulder up the hill? Sisyphus. Yeah. That's how I feel right now.
Who would make a better
the Marvel
for a
Sisyphus
Marvel movie?
And I'm Sisyphus's producer. JL for $2. How MCU turn around? I don't think Avengers will. I think they're going to start by hiring people that you recognize from the previous films and try to fill in the gaps later.
They really need to bring in the X-Men and do well with it. And this movie makes me worried that they can't.
No, they shouldn't be touching the X-Men right now because all they have as a frame of reference are the movies, and the movies are they peak and valley. Now, oddly enough, I did on my Patreon do a 5-minute pitch and a 12-minute audio video of how to fix this, how to restore this. And oddly enough, some of my patrons and some of the people I know have actually started sharing that audio clip with some of their connections over at Disney Marvel. They're never going to use it. and the reason being is that they wouldn't want to work with a person like me.
If they do, they'll steal it.
They can steal it all they want. I got it time stamped and enough specifics in there that I can already go to arbitration for it and get credit if I want to. But even if they steal it, it's like whatever powers that they get involved, they'll never do it justice. And that even makes it worse because it's like, oh, you got this great concept and idea here and you drop the ball because, again, the Marvels has a great concept and idea. Oh, great. Carol Danvers destroyed a planet, and the survivors of that planet are going to destroy the planets that Carol loves in order to restore their own homeworld. That is a very simple, easy to grasp plot to structure a story around. They did nothing with it, though.
But
so
yeah, they don't mention that happened until the film is almost over, which makes no sense to me. They should have again gone to Jerry Bruckheimer and look at the fact that, okay, you have your big, massive destruction moment right at the start, and then someone explaining what happened, like, I don't know, Sword or Saber or whatever we're calling Nick Fury's organization now, and then you move on from there, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe some rock music plays before you go to Kamala Khan. I'm not saying that this is an inspired idea. I'm saying that, if you're gonna make a bad film, at least make one that reminds people of some good films.
A better inciting incident would be have the bad guy try to steal Earth's oceans first, and she is stopped. And that's how you unite the Marvels together, because maybe she goes off the east coast of Jersey, and that's where her portal starts, and that's how Kamala is able to get there quicker before all the other Avengers.
And how about the fact that if it was the Earth's sun, and then or some other instance, and she uses her powers, and then guess what? Oh, well, now she's quantum entangled the second time around. And now when she uses her powers so easily the first time, she can't do it now.
Well, you don't even need the quantum entangling, because that's just, again, a contrivance to get those three together. But you have bad guy who Captain Marvel is after, goes to Earth, goes to New Jersey, tries to steal water, and then Proton, who is an agent of Sword, goes to investigate that at the same time. You have all those three characters brought together for the exact same time, and they have similar powers that are able to use and actually stop her. And that's how you bring them together, where it's like, okay, bad guy's going to go off to another planet. We have to follow her. And since all three of us able to work together stopped her this time, we have a better chance of stopping her other times. But you escalate the villain's powers at the other planet where she steals the atmosphere, and at another planet where she steals water. And then when the bad guy realizes, oh, this is how I can get ahead of these three girls because they don't know how to work together, I'm going to go back. And since I couldn't get the water from Earth and I don't need it, I'm going to steal their sun. And boom, you get all those threaded lines back into a perfectly circular area without the entanglement crap, without any of the contrivances. It's just these three girls having to work together because when their powers are combined, a little Captain Planet-like, they can defeat this villain.
Thank you, Script.
They don't do stuff like that.
You said, I haven't seen it, of course, but you said that to steal the air, they go to a seaside resort. Isn't there water there too?
They went to a planet.
They couldn't do a twofer?
They couldn't do a twofer because one of the planets that they go to is like 90% covered in water, and the first one is not.
Okay.
It's almost got like no water to it. And Earth has got 70% water. So, I mean, the
water in New Jersey they wouldn't like.
Well, whoever at Marvel,
water, they're fancy enough to purify it.
Whoever at Marvel is the minder that watches our show, just steal all that for free, and whenever you fix this film, which you won't do, but whatever. Pro, I think we've probably
that's why they call our show pro bono when it comes to helping the Walt Disney Company. They don't listen, but we keep offering. All right, well, let's go to our next topic, and we have two of the finest experts around to walk us through this, and that is, of course, that SAG-AFTRA seems to be over in terms of the strike. And Jonas, I believe, will switch to my screen.
Oh, yes, good idea.
Which is right here. And Jonas, I'm going to hide that Chiron at the bottom. And
there's audio on this right now.
Yeah.
Here.
Oh, is there?
Oh, yeah, just mute the tab.
Yeah, I muted the tab. I muted
you.
It on StreamYard, so.
All right, let me fix this Chiron real quick for everybody. Now we're ready to roll. Okay. It said SAG-AFTRA was over, and I thought, well, that seems a little more harsh than what is the reality. It's the strike that has ended, of course. This out of foxbusiness.com by Tracy Wright. SAG-AFTRA strike ends after tentative agreement approved. Here's what we've got. The SAG-AFTRA reached a tentative agreement Wednesday to end a 118-day strike that brought Hollywood productions to a grinding halt and left thousands unemployed for months. In a unanimous vote this afternoon, the SAG-AFTRA TV Theatrical Committee approved a tentative agreement with the AMPTP, bringing an end to the 118-day strike. The strike officially ends at 12:01 a.m., just a few hours from now.
No,
the tentative deal will...
Or this morning, actually.
Oh, did it go? Oh,
12:01 a.m.
You're right.
Right.
The tentative deal will go to the SAG-AFTRA National Board on Friday, November 10th, 2023 for review and consideration. Further details will be released following that meeting. Now, I want to go to you two gentlemen, the two who have some experience here, and ask, what do you think? What do you think we have in terms of timing for Hollywood really and truly getting back to work? And what do you think in terms of who won, who did well, who came out on top of the negotiations here?
Well, we don't know because we haven't seen the deal. But
Right.
what we do know is that the producers said, we're giving you a last best offer and we want an answer by 5 p.m. or else. And surprise, that's about when they said yes.
Well, I wasn't so much an or else. The or else was, if you don't get an answer by 5 p.m., we're not going to be able to get work started up until much later in the new year than expected. And from what I heard from the SAG people that I know in there, they said, well, then you've got a lot of thinking to do when it comes to our counter to the AMPTP. And that's how we got that tentative agreement 45 minutes before the deadline.
Well, okay. Well, we'll see what's in it. But as far as how long it's going to take, the first question is, have the writers been busy all this time since they settled theirs? Is there something to shoot?
Selected writers have been. There's a new writing team on Daredevil right now. There's a couple of revisions happening with some of the shows that have their back 13 to produce.
Right. And have they all got enough on paper that all of the other departments have been now heading back? Or did they say, wait, we better wait for the actors because we don't want to spend the money if it ain't going to happen? See, that's
I think their deadline was basically the moment the writers started turning in stuff that was acceptable to the studios is when the studios said, okay, we'll go back to the table, because that's really why they left.
No, but my point is, just because they have something that's acceptable doesn't mean the prop guys, the set guys, the designers,
Correct.
They may not have wanted to give a green light to those people because, hey, we don't want to spend all that money to find out the actors are being jerks and we can't go back after all. So
exactly. Like they didn't, it was all on the writer's side from what I've been hearing. It's like they're just getting their ducks in a row. And then as soon as they're ready to go, it's like, okay, we're not going to move any forward until we get this strike resolved. And once the strike is resolved, that's where they hit the ground running, because that's when they hire everybody back. Because why would they waste money hiring people back when they don't have the actors
exactly.
ready?
So that goes to Pro's question about how soon can it all start up. The answer is they just shot the gun to get the race started.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, the practical effect then on 2024 would be that we might see movies make what sort of deadline, the ones that had been halted? Can we still save the summer box office?
The late summer, the midsummer, not the early.
Yeah. From the bigger studios, yeah. Here's the irony is that anyone on the independent side of things that doesn't have a distribution deal is going to be sitting very pretty come the January, because those studios are going to need movies to fill their slate that they had to delay. And this is going to be something long overdue, because we have had a very, very soft injection of independent creators and voices in Hollywood over the last 10, 15 years. Yeah. This could actually be their break to get new names so that people stop referencing people like Christopher Nolan, Tarantino, Spielberg, and Coppola and so forth, because those guys are from 40 years ago. Who's from today? And who's going to usher in the next generation? It's usually on the independent side of things, but studios have been very wary of that, because some of the people that do make impressive marks don't fit the certain appearance that the studios have been pushing for the last decade.
I second that, and I add, where have the successes been lately? Five Nights at Freddy's, Sound of Freedom, all independent movies. Or relatively independent.
And I will say, Five Nights at Freddy's, female director, Sound of Freedom, Latino director.
Yeah.
So it's not a repudiation of diversity. It's just a repudiation of making diversity the only thing that's important.
Right. And I'll say this, like Jason Blum, Hollywood has been trying to suppress him for a very long time, because he makes schlocky horror films that do really well for very cheap. And while a lot of other producers in town love him, the studios kind of try to push him at arm's length here and there, until recently, when Comcast got into bed with him for the Exorcist stuff. And it's the first time where his name has actually started to circulate around even more. And sadly, The Exorcist has not been performing well. So that's going to hurt his reputation until he resets himself again back into that model. And we get other voices that can do the same thing, create really high quality looking and narratively driven stories for under $20 million that can actually stand to make a profit and actually grow either a smaller studio, a smaller production house, or benefit the studio's old model of, hey, cost cutting is not bad, because, scarcity is the mother of invention. and creativity.
And for those out there who say, well, why did it take them this long to figure that out, when spending all this money, crazy money on the Marvels and everything else? Because you can't steal $1 million out of $1 million is the old answer.
Yeah.
The overhead and the executive levels and the everybody involved that wants to get their slice. If the movie's 20 million, not 200, there is fewer slice to go around.
Right.
Now, I do want to point out that Hollywood might be saved. It looks like Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson are going to the Tonight Show, perhaps tonight, because the strike has ended. This one by Peter White from Deadline. It looks like they're now being forced to go out and promote, which they have not done. I'm fairly certain this 43 million on this not so great film is probably when they want to blame something for the lack of box office. I'm pretty sure they're going to go here.
Oh yes,
they must be filming it now.
Have.
The Tonight Show films at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Yeah.
So they're going to be on. It looks like NBC has adjusted its guests for Friday night's The Tonight Show, with Marvel stars Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson being added at the last minute. All right.
To say what? It's not as bad as you heard, really. Please go.
Now,
a week ago, yes. Now, I don't know.
Technically, the members of SAG haven't necessarily approved this, have they?
They haven't, but apparently they have, because when they said the strike is over as of now and we'll get around to the voting on it later, what are they going to do? Say, oh, wait, hold the phone. We're back on strike again. We voted against it. It's a deal.
Yeah, I don't think Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson will be punished for this, or unless they, I mean, I suppose they could make a stink about it, but I think Brie Larson is hanging on by a thread here as far as marketability as a box office star.
I would suggest
she did wonders for Fast 10.
That the producers, when they said that that part about it ends as of midnight, that was part of the deal too. You got to announce it's a done deal and get everybody back to work now.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh, that's basically standard operating procedure on those types of contracts.
Well, but not if they're saying, okay, let us take it to the members and see what they think. You see what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like the only reason they'd agree to that is if they felt that the vast majority of the members would vote onto this. And given the amount of communication I've seen between the captains and SAG, it's been pretty lockstep. The only thing that really annoyed me about this, and figures actors would do it this way, is the lack of details that are shared publicly anyways. Like what I really appreciate about WGA is that they went full out with all the details of what they wanted, how it worked, what the offers were, what the counter offers were, and everything. And it was a very long document. And this is prior to the actual agreement.
Right.
SAG puts in bullet points of like 6 things. I'm like, yeah, you're an actor. It's like that's what actors do. They don't do any more work than that. Like I've seen the notes.
They only read their own lines when they're
they only read their own lines. They only put, they only write their own subtext next to the lines, and and as long as it's under 5 words, they know they've got it. And it's just very scarce and silly. And it's like, wow, this is really doing a disservice to the people to the members, to your membership, if they want to know or identify where the issues are so that they can either reconcile with them or revise them or basically discard them because they're not going to achieve the overall desire required.
And by the way, we talked earlier in this whole process about the encouraging people to go on the strike lines and whether that was bad or good as far as the Writers Guild and what they said at the end of their strike. I would like to read to you the entire statement of the Directors Guild and show you how classy people do it. Quote, "Congratulations to SAG-AFTRA on successfully reaching a tentative agreement that addresses the unique needs of their members. We look forward to our industry getting back to work. The Directors Guild of America." Period.
That's similar to what I said.
Yeah. And notice they use the word tentative, of course, but because they're accurate.
I thought you were saying they use the word period.
Well, no, that's mine.
All right,
Vash, any thoughts before we move to our next topic? I don't want to leave you out of the discussion.
Oh no! I'm just happy to get these productions back to full steam, and I am encouraged that more independent films might get a resurgence here. We'll see.
Absolutely, Jonas. Let's hit some super chats, and then we'll go to our final main topic. We do need to discuss briefly the Zelda issue, and then give a review of Joe Rogan's favorite pizza at the end of the video. But
does it have mushrooms on it? What kind of?
No, it's a double pineapple, double anchovy. And yes, I did take a photo. It's up on the community tab for the WDW Pro channel. Folks, if you want to go see what that pizza looks like, and I'll give you my thoughts on whether or not it was better or worse than the Marvels.
William Thompson for $10. If Disney had any fiscal discipline or fiscal responsibility, are we talking about Disney's failure or are talking about how they aren't making great films, even though they would make a profit? Right now, they're spending so much on their films. Okay. Not to go too deep into Disney's business model right now, the intention of the films is to create something with franchise potential so that they can market it in the parks and for merchandise. They would spend way too much in order to develop that toy brand so that they could sell more toys. The thing that they didn't really think about is that if you build that new toy brand on destroying your previous toy brands, it doesn't go so well for you. That's what we've seen with Star Wars. It's what we're now seeing with Marvel. They believe that they are so good at what they're doing with franchises that it doesn't matter. They'll just swap in these new heroes. They'll swap in Rey for Luke Skywalker, and they'll be fine. It's been short-sighted, and I hope that they've learned their lesson now.
Well, it's interesting because what we watched with the earnings call yesterday is that the idea that Disney can be divorced from the receptions and reactions of the audience to their product and their overall business health. And we'll explain that. That's our very next topic. We'll explain why we think this is happening at a resolution that you're not going to find on many other channels. Needless to say, hang tight. But if anybody else has any thoughts on this super chat, feel free to weigh in on it.
Well, Disney's going to be the last holdout because they're the ones that are still drinking the Kool-Aid. Mm-hmm. You can take a look at the slate of films that have come out over the last 2 years, and you can see that the majority of stuff that's pushing the very identity politics that's resulting in failure with audiences is primarily coming from Disney. Yes, the other studios have experimented it here with a film or two, but nowhere near at the level that Disney has. And what's fascinating is that the studios have seemed to abandon that methodology. If they were getting sort of incentives from various investors, the studios did the smart thing and said, screw you guys, we are making real money and you can't cover our losses and by that way. And Disney seems to be the last one that's like, no, we're fine with you covering our losses if you can.
Right.
And Disney is not asking the audience what they want. They're telling them what they should want.
Right. That's very good. Very good. That's been a long time Disney strategy.
That's Bud Light again, all over.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Bass player Iffy for $10. Talking of Iron Man, can we talk about how great the opening scene is? It tells you everything you need to know about Tony in less than 60 seconds and with minimal dialogue. Yes, Afghanistan, AC/DC playing. You see the Humvee. You see the drink clinking in the glass. And all of the soldiers looking at who in the world this person is. He obviously does not fit in the scene, but he's also commanding everyone that is in the scene. Really good stuff. Tells you everything you need to know about him. Really great scene.
Well, you have a character who we don't know around people that don't really know him, and they're asking him questions in a very logical way. Now, that's not necessarily the opening scene. The opening scene is him getting a mask torn off, a hood torn off, and he's like captured and he's bleeding from the chest. And then they do a time jump back. And I hate when movies do that because it's basically saying we don't believe in our actual opening scene, or at least we have doubts about it. But, here we go, where you could definitely cut that little bit and go into that, the scene that you just described, and people would still be hooked right away. And
they're
sadly,
afraid you won't
the
like
Marvels
him
did that too.
First.
The Marvels did that too. They had that whole animated sequence of Kamala Khan drawing her fantasy, working with Captain Marvel, and then she disappears, and they go 24 hours earlier, and then it's Captain Carol Danvers' story, and it's like, geez, you really just don't believe in yourself if you have to do that, because it's a very tropey thing. It basically says the real star of your story is not inviting enough to hook your audience. So we're going to move ahead to the part where it is. And any screenwriter or director worth their salt will be like, well, why don't we just start the story here?
Yeah,
and we still don't know what Monica Rambeau does.
And that director is not J.J. Abrams on Mission Impossible 3. Slade Wilson, the band man, for $5. Darben, the villain, looked like the girl from The Exorcist when she was possessed. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Very, very, very good observation. That's what I was seeing. Yeah, very good.
No pea soup, I hope.
I think when we say that this is the worst MCU villain, I mean, guys on the panel, can you think of any worse MCU villain than what we had in the Marvels?
The Accuser wasn't that great. It's another Kree villain, kind of forgettable.
Mm-hmm. But worse.
I mean, actually, the thing with Marvel is that the vast majority of their villains are actually kind of poor.
That's what I'm saying. That's why this is so bad. We're dealing with a franchise known for bad.
Like the villain of Ant-Man and the Wasp not Quantumania, but Ant-Man and the Wasp, the Spectre ghost villain thing. She was boring and empty and useless.
I'm not making a pun, but I mean it. The Frost Giant guys in the Thor movies always left me cold. They really did.
Colm Feore plays that guy. He's a decent actor, so they could have given him some lines. So William Thompson became a YouTube channel member. Thank you so much. I don't think we were able to catch your membership level, but thank you so much for joining the crew.
Happy to have
Space
you.
Dave 2000 for $2 Canadian. You can only watch one, Ahsoka or Marvels. Choose wisely.
Marvels.
If I want to be confused, I'll watch the Marvels. If I want to go to sleep, I'll watch Ahsoka.
I'm going to say Marvels is better than Ahsoka.
Highlander remake.
Qualitatively, I mean, that really, listen, folks, that's how bad Ahsoka was at the end. Ahsoka should have never been put onto television screens. It is unbecoming of a company that has a streaming service.
All righty. Slade Wilson for $5. I give the movie a 4. I should not stop laughing at the sheer stupidity in it to the point I could not stop laughing.
I call
at the sheer
foul.
stupidity in it.
I call foul because I don't think the other 3 people in the theater were loud enough to shush Slade. I believe his laughter has more power than that.
They clearly have not watched the show if they think that Slade can be shushed. But you cheat, Slade. You cheat. You went into this assignment and you had a good time laughing at it like it was Mystery Science Theater 3000. You fooled us all. If only we had thought of something like that.
Charger the Comic for $5 Canadian. What good is an MCU turnaround when elsewhere Insomniac Spider-Man games are going full Pandaverse and proudly fan baiting their audience?
I'm trying to think how I want what I want to say to that.
That's a Sony issue on the game side of things, which it's taking them longer to learn on the game side of things than it is on the feature side of things.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's more to do with the fact that Columbia is kind of still more in charge of what they're doing, even though they're owned by Sony.
And I think Avi Arad does have some involvement in those games as well. Just throwing that out there as well. Yep.
I think that the games. I think that any change for the future in terms of who will be the main Spider-Man in the games is so far out there that a company can test the waters to see the reaction. And I suspect that the reaction has been such that they might think twice about it.
I wouldn't be surprised if the next game is a quote-unquote sequel to Miles Morales and that they go back to Spider-Man by the time they get to the actual, heavy version. A lot of times studios like that will do a smaller update and then go back to the main game after a while. So.
I will say for video gaming, for as activist oriented as Hollywood might be, the gaming industry, that is.
I agree with you there.
Beyond.
There's a lot of them in Quebec, Canada, and Quebec is a crazy province, especially with identity politics.
David March also became a YouTube member. Thank you so much.
Welcome aboard.
And hey, Views with Hughes, agenda-free news. Go check him out, guys. For $2. Excellent show, guys. Good to see you, Hughes. I hope you are doing well.
Love that.
And that's right. One of our VI Pro members. And I think Hughes will be making an appearance on the channel next week. Hughes be looking for a message from me where to do some scheduling on that.
Awesome. Scotty Joe for $10. Panel, do you think Bob will reference the Marvel's reputation on TikTok like he did for ESPN?
35 million, guys. 35 million viewers or TikTokers.
Did they put the whole movie on TikTok? Because if he did and they get 35 million viewers, that's an achievement.
Can you imagine if on the Warner Brothers call someone had asked, what about this Harry Potter franchise? How's that doing? And the answer was, well, on Twitter, we're number 5 actually overall in followers.
Yeah, in an app that is owned by the Chinese government that the Disney company has a great relationship with. They've boosted a company that, is also owned by the Chinese government in China. Let's see.
We have some algorithmic favoritism. Look at us.
Vertical integration.
Can't you see the
great,
discussion
Brett.
going on in Beijing when they say, well, we have good news and bad news? The good news is we just sucked the information out of 35 million people in the U.S. The bad news, they're all sports nuts, and there's nothing we can use.
Pinochet's helicopter tour member for 3 months. There's a vendor who goes to game devs to insert ESG. I've heard of that.
Yes, we're aware of that one.
Yep. All right, Pro, what's your last topic?
It's time for our final big major topic, and that is the Disney stock, of course. Folks out there probably know a little bit about this, but we're going to talk about it briefly just to set the context around what we've got. And that's not it, but this is. There we go. Out of Variety, this one by Jennifer Mass. Disney Plus tops 150 million subscribers. Streaming loss narrows to $387 million. This is really what drove the stock, we believe, over the last 24 hours. Although This is not a channel for you to receive financial advice. Please don't make any financial decisions due to anything that we say. Seek out your own personal financial advisor whom you trust, is well respected, and has all the credentials necessary. But in this article, of course, it talks about the Disney Plus topping 150. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But this is the big thing I think that investors were looking at. But in terms of what happened over the last 24 hours or so, Disney stock gains 7% as cost-cutting target reaches $7.5 billion. And subscribers surge. And so, folks, you've got to understand, and there's the chart right there. What you got to understand is that the average investor, and even the far above average investor, is not watching shows such as this. They don't know really what's on the horizon. And what happens is that over a long period of time, the market seems to correct itself in whatever direction it should go, usually, unless we get into a really bad situation. But the market corrects itself over a long period of time. We're within 24 hours. Disney put out a very clever earnings call where they said some things that sound very good. And we really broke that down in this morning's AM video, where we talked about three things and gave high specificity to the way that Disney sort of, I don't want to say they mislead, but that people seem to have been misled. Maybe of our own ignorance, let's put it that way. And those three things, of course, were Disney's claiming that they were going to do this large capital expenditure investment into Disney parks. And then in the investment, there was about two sentences that said, oh, by the way, that's over the next 10 years and it's back-ended. So in other words, folks, it's all that investment is basically being pushed to the back. And that means that due to inflation, that is a massive decrease in CapEx expenditures.
It's only $600 million per park per year, and if it's averaged out, but most of that is going to be spent closer to 2033.
I heard the turbocharged language, though. That can't be correct. It's must be something else.
Then there was also the situation of them lauding and praising 6 films this year, and they failed to mention that 4 of those 6 either have or are very likely to be box office failures. The average investor out there doesn't know that. They simply don't. And then with these Disney Plus subscribers, and this is where we're going to go, and then I've got one other thought I want to drop on this, but with the Disney Plus subscribers, what they didn't mention is that for the past month, 2 months, they've been running a $199 deal where they're basically giving away Disney Plus for free. They also didn't talk a lot about... Yeah, go ahead.
Also in the international regions as well. That's in the UK.
They also didn't talk very much about the fact that they're about to have a massive subscriber purge, although they did say that in Q1, streaming would face some headwinds. But they didn't say, we're looking at millions and millions and millions of accounts dropping due to issues with Hotstar. And all of this, I think, you can't expect investors to know everything at a high resolution about every single company. But Disney is exceedingly good or bad, depending on how you look at it, in terms of packaging the magic to investors. The problem here is that just like in a relationship at home, folks, you can only mislead your spouse for so long before, you're going to have a real issue. And I think the dragon is growing in terms of the chaos that the company faces down the road as a result. But I do have one other thought, and then I want to go to Vash and Jonas to get their thoughts on this. The other thought I would say here is that there are a lot of people out there who are thinking, well, we've heard from South Park and the YouTubers and, all of these analysts bounding into comics, thatparkplace.com, that Disney's on the down. And here they had this great earnings call. Those people are wrong. What I would say to this is I think that there is significant anticipation from the investors that Disney has done so poorly for so long that they got a glimmer of hope and they're all trying to hop in on this and find the bounce. And I think that may also be playing into this, although, again, no financial advice being given. But I want to go to Jonas, because, Jonas, you had some thoughts on the subscriptions and what's playing into this in this stock price right now. What do you think?
Well, yeah, the first thing is that they dipped in subscriptions, and that would the previous quarter they had a 300,000 subscriber loss in.
And that's
the
a big
US.
number that investors went, oh no.
Right, which was that the stock price did not react well to that. I'll also point out that when Disney was at the height of its stock price a couple of years back, that was when everyone was speculating that they were going to be the next Netflix at some point. So as great as those theme parks are, as great as those movies were at the time, it's pretty apparent that stock speculation was all around streaming, because everyone lost their minds about streaming. So yesterday they announced 7 million new subscribers over the last 3 months, and the stock price went up. They also were very tricky and said, you know what, by the way, we've got this new streaming service that we're going to bring out any day now. It's a $35 a month streaming service. So they've basically said they're going to go do Disney Plus again. They're going to take investors on this ride one more time, this time for ESPN, and hopefully with several strategic partners. So they're going back to that classic well of, yes, we're going to do more streaming investments. It drives me insane, because I don't think it's fiscally responsible. That being said, if they can keep the sports rights, good for them. They've got something long term. But my goodness, I'm getting tired of the streaming stock price roller coaster.
And I talked to an expert today about this. And the expert said to me, Pro, what they're looking at here, the investors, is that historically Disney has performed better than they have in the past years. And so once they got this optimism, then all of a sudden, the investors started playing the game of, all right, well, what's the historical achievement of this company? Oh, it's underneath. All right, buy. But we don't really, on this channel, I try not to have knee-jerk reactions to stock fluctuations over 24 hours. Warren Buffett doesn't play that way, and I don't think we should play that way either. We're looking at a company, and this is what's so funny to me. You can get a lot of clicks on Twitter by covering it this way, but the reality is this is a company that is still under 50% of its value that it had 2 years ago. The fact that it got a $5 bump, am I going to sit here and say Disney's on the right track when I'm also watching the Marvels bomb at the box office, and I'm preparing to watch Loki perhaps have less than half of its original ratings for the finale, season 1 versus season 2? I have to weigh all of that in. Vash.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I personally take that the stock might be a little bit undervalued, and I think that goes.
And that's
to
what
your
investors
point
are thinking.
about,
yeah,
right. That's kind of correcting in that way, but it's clear. I mean, they're just looking at streaming. They see that as the growth revenue model for this company going forward, even though it's at the expense of their previous models, such as linear and even their film and television. And all those assets they used to have, and all the things that they used to gain, especially when it came to we release a film and then we sell that film multiple times to different distributors, or let's say we make them up on Blu-ray sales and all that kind of stuff. All of that has been completely
and merch
upended.
and park rides and everything else. That's been their formula since day one.
Exactly right.
But there's two things here. We had the four of the top movies. Yeah, but they didn't make money.
Right.
We have X zillion subscribers. Yeah, but they're not paying what you want them to. You gave them a discount, or you're counting them twice, or all kinds of. Look, to me, there's only one important date that we have no concept of when it's going to happen, but when it does, it's going to reveal all of this. Well, I'm not an investment guy, and I have no fear. Deception. Jonas, when do you suppose Mr. Peltz is going to put his white paper out?
Very soon.
Because they just added a few pages to it in this call with all of this stuff.
Right. Yeah. This whole idea
Just to say that $5 bump isn't Nelson Peltz buying more stock.
It's a very good point. He's got a lot of control of a lot of money. I will say that there's that CNBC has reported that Alex Sherman, the same guy who did the 12,000 word expose on Iger and Chapek and all that misbehavior, he said that Peltz was waiting for this call to to decide whether or not he was going to do a proxy fight. That white paper, there is no way that Bob Iger does not know what Nelson Peltz wants. That is an inflammatory statement where he was prodding him on CNBC yesterday.
Dismissive and adversarial.
Oh,
and
yes.
and he was smiling and smirking when they were talking about Hugh Johnston's history against Nelson Peltz. So I see, and also to mention the 45th president of the United States was just out there at a rally pointing out that Ike Perlmutter was in the audience and he doesn't like how woke Disney and Marvel have gotten. So there's just antagonism on top of antagonism.
And what that means, Jonas, is egos are going to be involved here.
And just to be clear, that's $1.5 billion worth of shares that are probably just Isaac Perlmutter's shares on top of the $1 billion that Peltz controls. So there's a lot of mud being slung right now.
Putting all the rest of that aside, the personalities and the whatever, everybody who bought the stuff on that call, who just bought some more stock, all those investment guys that called in and get their little questions in, they're not going to have any excuse for not knowing anymore once that white paper comes out, is my point. Right now, well, we were fooled along with the rest of you. But surprise, here it is in black and white. Schmuck, why did you buy that lie?
This is a family.
All I'm trying to say is we talk about how they all boost Disney and how all the media and everybody else, but if you make them look like idiots for doing it because you throw the facts in their face, they have to be shocked that there's gambling going on in this establishment and walk away. They just have to, or else their own reputations go down with Bob's.
I think it's profoundly interesting where the stock actually lies and where these investments might eventually go. You know, we look at the streaming side of the business and we go, okay, there's some manipulation there. But then we look at the park side of the business and we go, okay, well, that's contributing to most of your profit year over year, and yet we're not getting any new developments or new attractions or themed lands or anything in the theme park space domestically for the next 3 years. And we know our per caps are probably down at Walt Disney World, even though it wasn't necessarily referenced in the actual earnings call itself. It was stated that the income per guest was lower at the Walt Disney World side than it had been before. And they say hotels, and I guess there is some argument for that. But at
if I don't want to go to the parks anymore, suddenly all those great timeshares become no different competitively than the ones that are at a beach or at a mountain or somewhere else.
Exactly.
The whole hook on their timeshares is the park experience. And if the families are saying, well, I'm not so sure about that anymore, suddenly all of that goes away. Exactly.
Right, and at a time when competition is ramping up, right? We have new investments in, University of Hollywood. We have an entirely new theme park in Florida. We have a new regional park in Texas. We have a new haunted HHN experience in Vegas. And so it's like,
and those guys on I-40 up there, they could have timeshare trailers. I don't know. Anyway.
I'll just
wait until they actually start marketing the Harry Potter land there right next to Super Nintendo World in Orlando. Pro, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll just say that I don't have any inside information about this in terms of the content. I don't know when it's going to happen, but there are very strong rumors that information is going to drop about Disney that will be very interesting to very many people near term. And I can't say any more than that, but and don't make any decisions based on that, please. But just know that the rumors are going around that there's something out there that is of significance that we're all going to be talking about in the next little bit. But one thing that we do need to talk about, lightning round right now. Let's talk about Zelda real fast. We've got some people out there who are curious about whether or not this should be CGI or live action, as well as they have questions about the director. Let me hand it to the panel and see what you guys think. Lightning round. Everybody take this in 90 seconds max.
I know nothing about the director. I know nothing.
Perfect. You have the greatest brevity of an answer.
I pass it along to the rest of you.
I've heard Avi's name thrown around before in both good and bad terminology, mostly bad, right? There are some implications there. Look, I'm not necessarily thrilled about it being in live action. I think there was some really real potential there to have like a mashup or Super Smash Brothers mashup with, the Mario characters and so forth. Maybe that still happens, but I don't know. I'm really gonna have to judge this one by the cast and some other things that we learn about this film as we go forward here.
Yeah, I would.
Never mind, Jonas.
I was going to send the button to Script to wrap us all up, but go ahead, Script.
I'll put it to you this way. It's the director to the Maze Runner trilogy, which nobody saw. He's not much of an auteurship. You have a writer who hung on to the coattails of Colin Trevorrow, who's only gotten story by credits to a majority of films and has been rewritten heavily. And then you have Avi Arad, who is one hell of a marketer, but he does not know how to produce a movie to save his life.
That's other than that, Mr. Lincoln, how did you like the play?
I think that Avi Arad is obviously a mixed bag. He has to hire someone well. Script has said all accurate things, and I don't disagree with him at all there. I think the fact that it is Sony and Avi Arad means they're probably going to go with the path of least resistance, which means Tom Holland will be called, if not casted, for this role. And I'm not interested in a Tom Holland Legend of Zelda film. If they go younger than that, they've got to make this an adventure, and they've got to nail Ganon, and they've got, I mean, seriously, they've got to make someone that you could make a cartoon of it and put him right next to Mario and still have a good time. That's what I want them to do. I want to thread that needle, make it fun. Don't try to be all dark and edgy with it. Just make it fun and make it an adventure. And please don't murder my childhood and make this another Bob Hoskins with strippers situation.
But the one thing it does do is it confirms and accelerates the rumors about turning the dead Atlantis land in Islands of Adventure into a Zelda land. That's got to happen.
Well,
I bet it happened within a year of the opening of Epic Universe.
Well, the only thing I'll say to that is it's a Sony production, so I would have assumed Universal would have had something to do with this on some level, especially with Super Mario Brothers being a Universal production. But here we are.
Let me put a button on it. So I don't think that I don't think I'm going too far by saying that we had the first exclusive here regarding the Zelda movie. We've had it for a long time. It's finally been corroborated from Nintendo itself. I am talking to some of those same sources that helped us get that. And all I can say right now, although I hope in the next 48 to 72 hours to have a better answer, all I can say right now is we may not know everything that's planned. Let's not make complete assumptions about this just yet. So that's what I'm going to say, and I hope to be able to say more soon. There may be more that we don't know that we would like to know for this discussion. So, pineapple pizza, double pineapple, double anchovy. Joe Rogan and Elon Musk ordered it on that podcast. They tried it. I took a photo of mine that I had tonight, and folks, here's what I'm going to tell you. It is better indeed than the Marvels. And 73% of you out there said in the poll that you would not try such a pizza. You would never eat such a thing. Some of you called it an abomination. And I'm here to tell you, it was pretty decent. I would eat it again, but it's definitely not a traditional pizza flavor. It is sweet and salty for sure.
You've got a huge crowd that hates sardines and a huge crowd that hates pineapple. You put them both together. By God, Marvel should have made that movie. It would have sold tickets.
I will say, though, Lou, that it was not what I expected, because when those two things get together, they kind of create their own new flavor. So it was.
I can imagine that.
I'll compare it to if any of you out there like mango salsa on your sushi, or if you've ever had mango on your sushi, it kind of had that same kind of jive going on. I liked it. So another thing, though, that we did tonight is we took a poll and we asked if you guys prefer us going on at 6 p.m. Eastern time versus 5 p.m. And we got some interesting reaction to that. We're going to take that to heart. We're not going to make a decision right now. It involves some programming stuff too. And we'll let you know, though, the 50K is coming up, and you just never know what all changes might happen around that 50K. We'll have plenty of announcements there, as well as, Jonas, as we get ready to wrap up. Jonas, tell us about thatparkplace.com and the huge announcement coming in the middle of November without telling us what it is.
Well, I don't know what more there is to say there. We have got a very big announcement that I think, especially this crowd, will be very excited to hear. That Park Place is going through a relaunch, and there is an essential point here that I cannot say. I cannot use these 3 words, and these 2 words from these 3 words are going to appear on that Park Place and are going to blow this thing up. So that's all I can tell you. Oh, and by the way, we're going to announce it all on November 20th on a special live stream.
You got Bree and Rachel to do a column.
It may be just as big. Get ready. All right, Jonas, we've got a couple more super chats, and then we are going to be redirecting everybody over to Midnight's Edge After Dark. Jonas, hit those super chats.
Yes, sir. Hello, computer. Hello, computer. For $2. Marvel's released and strike ends. Coincidence? If we hadn't had that story about Brie Larson going on the Tonight Show, I might have thought it was a conspiracy.
They at least kept her off the carpet.
I heard Iger wanted this strike to end sometime yesterday. And that's primarily before the earnings call, but he didn't get that one.
That's what he wanted the CNBC interview to be. Pinochet's helicopter tours for $2. At least Disney Plus isn't government mandated yet.
You'll inject it into your eyes soon, Pinochet. Don't you worry.
Princess Zelda can't be played by Brie. That's John Torado for $2. I agree.
John, you better go knock on wood. You go knock on wood right now, sir.
I think hopefully they're casting him young enough that Brie Larson can't play Princess Zelda, because we don't need a "Hey Parker" situation going on.
Oh no! Oh no!
Absolutely. All right, folks. The link for each one of these fantastic panelists is in the video description. Make sure to click on it. Check out their content.
I have normally preview of coming attractions. Tommy Tables is interviewing Lauren and I to talk about Westerns.
Hey,
Monday night. So that should be fun.
Wait. That will be awesome.
Preview of attractions.
And of course, folks, don't forget to become a member and get access to that very exclusive and interesting interview coming up. Folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, keep having fun. And a super chat just came in from Slade. So I'll tell you, you're the gigawatts.
1.21 gigawatts! 1.21 gigawatts!
Jonas, you get the super chat.
All righty. Slade Wilson, the band man, for $2. I was nice today. Next week, maybe not so much. I'm glad we can all agree that The Marvels was horrible.
Slade is reformed now after the pain he has suffered, but we continue on because...
Would it make you feel any better if you knew that what we're asking Matt here to do is a holy thing?
You see, we're on a mission from God. We're on a mission from God.
Now you're gonna put me right back in the joint.
They're not gonna catch us. We're on a mission from God.
Go tell Tom it's a pro raid. As soon as you go over there, folks, let him know that we love Midnight's Edge After Dark and enjoy as we continue programming all around the collapse of the Marvels and one Brie Larson.